Okay, remember that a bunch of racist gays, heterophobic gays are changing my voice. This video is about the rules for a moral society and why not to be evil or even accept looking evil. We're going to do it in 3 parts. This is the first part. Point number 1. 1 John 2:15. Do not love the world or anything in the world. If anyone loves the world, love for the Father is not in them. Pretty straightforward. Don't be in any cultures of the world. Now, for the purpose of this video, we're going to define white culture, okay, what you might otherwise call white culture, as WHYTE culture. It may or may not include every white person, okay, that ever lived. There's an exception, and there's an exception. We're doing this so we don't break the rules on YouTube. It's stupid to have to do this, but this is the kind of society we live in, a very oppressive WHYTE culture having society. So point number 2, people have seen the WHYTE cultures, law, and ways for many years. Clearly, even the most clever of their church groups failed to convey the Spirit of God. Also, every other church that is allowed by the governing class has failed as well. They use mere psychology while accepting the boundaries of being a rebel. One must put a lamp on its stand while they are in the divine order, and they must convey focused moral intensity and universal pinpoint and moral precision in the divine order. In the Bible, it even says that the human spirit is the lamp of the Lord. Okay. So you have to be in the divine order to truly be, the lamp of the Lord. And you have to obey God through me to be in the divine order. See my proof on Christ playlist. Point number 3. Every response we see to the white man's culture, right, the WHYTE culture that is not mine, is a failed response. The white man's culture includes token minority cultures, as they are whitewashed in every church with a similar model. In a sense, every church. It's basically every church. By church, I mean Catholic, Orthodox churches, Protestant churches, what have you. And not some kind of fancy explanation for the churches in Revelation or something. Even the fact that I had to explain that is proof of the white man's insistence on confusion. It is stupid to have to explain to some brute that the WHYTE culture is the main culture bringing down the world. Everyone knows this to be true, and they know it is not racist to say it, but pure evil scum would pretend that it is. So why not go point by point? Point number 4. So now we have logically established that the answer to how one lives their life is outside of white culture and outside of white spiritual and philosophical teaching. So I'm going to go ahead and use the word white there because I think that's fair enough. It's an argument about whether or not you should be in white culture, not whether or not white people are evil or something. It goes without saying why I must establish this. So now, point number 5. So now let's establish the codes of clashing with other people. Okay, so this is going to be most of the video when we're talking about the codes of clashing with other people. Okay. And I labeled this section the fountain of the Spirit of life. See Proverbs 13:4. We'll go over that at the end. So the teaching of the wise is a fountain of life. Getting this right is extremely important. Point A. One must always have the highest cause in life, or by default, when they clash with other people, they have lost to some degree. So what is it? B. It is very cowardly and pathetic for people to try to team up with other people and act tough when they are in the wrong. Who among you would not think that a bunch of Nazis teaming up on a Jewish person and beating them up for kicks is wrong? Who among you would not think that a bunch of Klansmen teaming up on a black child and beating him up is stupid as hell and makes them bitches of the lowest type? Who among you does not think that teaming up on the top martial artist ever possible because he is telling the pure truth is a cowardly move? You see, this principle of the moral high ground must be established, and as I've pointed out earlier, this is especially true because of how white cultures were made and why it is impossible to be in white culture and to have the moral high ground. It's very important there. It's not a racist argument. It's impossible to be in a white culture and to have the moral high ground. Why? Because white cultures are colonial cultures. They're neo-colonial cultures. Okay, there's a difference between a liberal white person who's trying to be in a different culture and white culture. Now, that white culture often, and almost always, if not always, spills over into that white liberal's attempts to leave the culture because they're not obeying God through me. And the whole world is dominated by white culture, and the cultures that you see are cultures that they allow. They screen out people when they have a culture that they think crosses the line. You know, look at what happened to the Black Panthers, to Martin Luther King's movement, Malcolm X, what have you. What I mean is, it is impossible to be a jock, a rocker, a police officer, a Freemason, a churchgoer, a soccer mom, etc., and to have the highest culture, cause, and the highest driving force. These cultures are impure, and they are not in the Spirit of God. They should have just lived in reality and admitted what reality is. This also would have made it so I wouldn't have to start with clarifying what reality is, right? That's crazy that so many people are so out of touch that I have to start off with clarifying what reality is. Also, there's a difference between being nice and being righteous. A huge part of attractive female shunning me is them being nice to guys who do not deserve an attractive female. Keep in mind that ver in virtue means man, and frats are known for being scatterbrained and immoral, and they're one of the main groups that have influenced the cultures we have to this day. You know, the cultures that you see that are white cultures or allowed by white cultures. As they have reduced the heterosexual appeal of attractive females as a group, it is even more obvious that they have many reasons why they should admit I am right, right? So they've even reduced the heterosexual appeal of attractive females as a group. So if you're in a white culture, for example, why wouldn't you want people to admit that I'm right? You want them to keep doing the things that they're doing, including messing up your testosterone, reducing the heterosexual appeal of attractive females as a group, what have you. Now, who reduced them? It was the people in white cultures first and foremost, and they are rich whites, rich Jews, and rich LGBT people first and foremost. So when you look at Bibi Netanyahu, for example, is he an Orthodox Jew that dresses that way all the time? No. He wears a suit. His government is a secular government. Okay, his main allies are white. He even speaks English, even though he's Israeli, and so on and so forth, right? He's in white culture. You know, he's in white corporate globalist culture. So obviously the cultures are a racial response to the rich groups that run them, who are all upholding the psychological, financial, cultural, social, and sexual agenda known as white, Jewish, and LGBT supremacy. Cultures are made in a way that the people who choose to be in these cultures find acceptable enough to take part in. So they take part in them without having the highest cause, so they are just a part of it. For example, if you're a police officer and you are obeying God through me, okay, you wouldn't be limited to being just a police officer. You would be obeying God through me, and you just happen to be a police officer, okay? So they're a part of white culture because they have no higher cause, and it limits, you know, they're limited by the white culture that they're in. That's who they are. You'll see what I mean shortly. One must consider the commonalities that can be somewhat subtle at times, and the uniformity we are seeing. Okay, so when you say, hey, you know, that person is a police officer or that person's a Freemason, why? Because of the uniformity, because of, you know, what they proclaim themselves, because of the commonalities. So when we ask ourselves what culture is in white cultures and what aren't, we have to look at commonalities. That's why token minorities are in white culture. They're not just whitewashed, they're in white culture. In fact, gangs are in white culture. That could be a bit more tricky. Minority gangs, what have you. They're in cultures that are a racial response to white culture, that white cultures have allowed because they've injected white culture into those groupings. Thus, they, in a sense at least, are in white culture. Also, these cultures that I used as examples are all examples of white subcultures that are attached at the hips to the greater white culture. So, for example, we're talking about a black police officer, right? He's in white culture. If we're talking about black Freemason, he's in white culture. Okay, if we're talking about a modern black gang member, right? They got skinny jeans, they look gay washed, maybe red on their lips. Okay, LGBT people, white Jews and LGBT people, came up with their culture like a movie director or a costume designer came up with the costume, right? Even the word costume is a play on words for costume, me, and wardrobe, war, road, obi, right? O being the reproductive cycle, right? To be the OB is also a response to the idea of the Royal African Falcon top martial arts king. I go over this. OBE is like the word OBI, and the vowels are interchangeable. It's a long story. If you get confused about that, that's okay. Let's just keep going here. I don't want to confuse people here. It's already a little bit confusing as it is here. I'm going to have to make another video somewhere down the line if I'm still in my flesh, okay, to explain this better. It's another reason it's a good thing that we're doing this in 3 parts here. Okay. See, part of what happens when you try to explain it, when you write it down and you're fumed and poisoned, it can be a bit difficult. But I've done a pretty good job. It's just people have to kind of take the time to see the annotations, see the transcript, right? And read it carefully and ask questions. Okay, but I'm going to come up with a better version later in the future, somewhere down the line. Okay. Okay, all white cultures are, however, if one was to obey God through me in, say, California, they would probably still speak English, wear jeans, eat food from the grocery store, etc. But their core spiritual driving force would change their behavior subtly and otherwise. Okay, their core spiritual driving force would change their behavior subtly and otherwise, and the resulting culture would not be a white culture. Only someone who puts race over universal pinpoint and moral precision would find that problematic. That person is evil and the enemy of God and all of humanity. Think about it. C. It is not good to fight someone toe-to-toe. People may die or suffer cognitive impairment or crippling when they engage in a fist fight or an MMA-style fight, etc. One should only fight toe-to-toe in a way that does not cripple or kill someone when it is logical. Okay? And of course, that's toe-to-toe. Like, if you have to fight someone, chances are you're defending yourself and crippling them and killing them in a fair and just and right way, if you're doing the right thing, in reality, obviously, is okay. So what I mean is, somebody challenges you to a fight, okay, you don't necessarily have to respond to that challenge, okay? If somebody wants to go to toe-to-toe, say you're a gang member and they want to go toe-to-toe, okay, you shouldn't be a gang member in the first place, and you shouldn't go toe-to-toe with that person. But if somebody did something foul and you had to punish them and it made perfect sense to go toe-to-toe, then you take off on them. Okay? We'll get to this. We'll get to that in the future. I'm going to focus more on that in part 2. Part 2 is going to be a lot better than this. Okay. So going toe-to-toe is not a sound way to resolve conflicts or to solve conflicts, and often creates other problems. So we're going to go over C again in part 2. And we're going to get this, down pat to make sure everyone knows that I'm right. Because part 2 will be the part where I focus on that part of the clashing, right? The kind of the meat of the issue. So as we look at this thing, it's obvious that they know that I'm right. Okay, first of all, I'm the top martial artist. Second of all, they're fuming me and poisoning me. Okay, why are they making it harder for me to talk? You already know I'm smarter than everyone else. I'm a brain surgeon son. I'm the top martial artist. In order to be the top martial artist, one has to be smarter than everyone else. Okay, you even see it in on the internet. If you look it up and say, hey, does martial arts improve intelligence, etc.? Yes. And there's a bunch of intelligence agencies, work with frats and Poindexters and bitch-ass motherfuckers, squares, weirdos, pretty boys, government types, just scum, who want to pretend that they're smarter than everyone else. Some are military intelligence, some FBI, what have you, right? And you have the alphabet boys, right? Homeland Security, DOD, what have you. Okay, NSA. And they want to pretend that they're smarter than everyone else. A lot of these people went to Ivy League schools. A lot of people in Blackstone and other, Fortune 500 companies, what have you. They went to Ivy League schools, so they're trying to pretend they're smarter than everyone. So they have the motive, they have the means, motive, and ability, and you see a massive psychological operation taking place. So there's no point in them making it harder for me to talk, but I'm so much smarter than they are. that they decided to do that anyway while deciding to suppress my videos. Now think about that. Is that fucking smart? No. If you're smart, you would never, ever, 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 ever dream of even getting in Jesus' way a little bit. But if you're a dumb fucking asshole who wants to pretend they're smart, that's why the word school is look spelled backwards with a C instead of a K. Yeah, and the H, it's silent. Because they're just pretending to be smart, like a privileged bitch.